Good morning and welcome to your early morning Stylo News Intelligence Update. It's May 26, 2026, and we're looking at the cyber domain. I'll be guiding you through today's explainer, giving you an objective, fact-based look at the last 2 weeks of global events. We're zeroing in on digital warfare, AI threats, and some major structural hacks. So, let's get right into the briefing.
Before we dive in, a quick note that this intelligence briefing is brought to you by ProWave AI. They're the developers behind Stylo Intel, that's the AI-powered open-source intelligence program, as well as Stylo News, the commercial version you can grab right on the web and through their mobile apps. We actually rely on their data to bring you today's factual analysis. Here's our rundown for today. We'll start with global cyber threat patterns, then look at local and national impacts. After that, we'll cover the international security posture, gauge where decision makers and public sentiment stand, and wrap up with future threats you'll want to watch out for.
Section 1. Global Cyber Threat Patterns, State Actors in the Digital Battlespace. Looking at the big picture over the past 2 weeks, strategic intelligence is showing us a really elevated, sustained level of activity from key state actors. Geographically speaking, the operations we're tracking span a massive network. We're seeing digital operations linked back to actors in Iran, China, Russia, and North Korea, and these groups are clearly using the cyber domain to push broader geopolitical goals.
Now, let's break down the specific patterns intelligence is tracking for each of these actors. With China, groups like Volt Typhoon are basically pre-positioning themselves, maintaining hidden access within critical infrastructure for potential future disruption, while also conducting active espionage in Europe. Iran's focus right now is targeting Gulf partner networks along with U.S. banking and airport systems. Meanwhile, Russia is applying a lot of disruptive hybrid warfare pressure against NATO and EU states. And North Korea, they're running spear phishing campaigns against key policy figures and using crypto theft to actually fund their weapons of mass destruction programs.
Moving on to Section 2, Local and National Impacts, the Ripple Effect.
These international maneuvers don't just happen in a vacuum. They cascade down and create real, measurable disruptions for everyday citizens, businesses, and local institutions. When we compare local and national impacts, the scope really becomes clear. Locally, we're seeing isolated but highly disruptive events, like sudden university exam cancellations and targeted hacks on individual journalists. Zooming out to the national level, those exact same vulnerabilities are exposing critical utility infrastructure, compromising defense contractors, and threatening whole telecommunications networks.
Let's look at the facts of some recent national security breaches. In the U.S., unprotected automatic tank gauges at fuel stations across a few states were manipulated by suspected Iranian actors. They altered the display data. Now, it didn't affect the actual fuel levels, but it highlighted a pretty severe vulnerability in civilian supply chains. Also in the U.S., a former executive at defense contractor L3 Harris was court-ordered to pay $10 million for selling hacking tools to a Russian broker. Internationally, Russia is putting strict anti-fraud telecom measures in place after contractor compromises, and down in Brazil, hackers linked to a prominent banker targeted a journalist's communication device.
To really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of these vulnerabilities, consider this number: 275 million. That's the estimated number of users worldwide whose data was compromised when the cloud-based Canvas learning management system was breached by a criminal group called Shiny Hunters. This was a massive hit. It caused widespread academic disruptions, halting exams and exposing data at major universities all the way from North America down to Chile.
Section 3. International Security Posture, Global Collaboration.
Because these incidents routinely cross borders, allied nations and global organizations are being forced to coordinate their defense and intelligence sharing. A prime example of this interconnectedness is right in South America. Over in Uruguay, the state-owned telecom company Antel confirmed a breach of its 2ID digital identity platform. Luckily, the core authentication system stayed secure. But the incident is a textbook example of why globalized digital identity management requires constant, borderless vigilance.
In response to these transnational threats, international bodies are stepping up. The Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance is actively strengthening how they share joint intelligence. South Korea is taking a really proactive approach, launching a real-time global cyber threat intelligence platform aimed specifically at protecting the financial sector. And at the United Nations, cybersecurity bodies are officially calling for stronger global cyber norms, tougher legal frameworks, and targeted international sanctions.
Section 4. Decision makers and public sentiment, the war room.
To understand what the next few months might look like, we need to look at the key organizations and the actions they're taking. When you review these moves, you see a unified push towards systemic defense and accountability. That $10 million restitution from the U.S. judiciary? That's a heavy legal deterrent against insider espionage. The U.S. State Department is actively refuting North Korea's denials, explicitly tying their crypto theft to weapons funding. Anatel in Uruguay responded to their breach by immediately beefing up security and filing legal complaints. And South Korea is building shared collective defense infrastructure. Across the board, decision-makers share the same viewpoint. We need proactive defense and strict accountability.
So, how is the public reacting to all of this? We can gauge that by analyzing open-source social media sentiment. Based on data from security bulletin sources, everyday users are well aware of this accelerating AI weaponization trend in the cyber domain. The sentiment out there is a mix of measured alarm about the threats, paired with a deep appreciation whenever they get rapid, actionable intelligence updates.
There's also a really positive shift in sentiment when it comes to practical defense education. When people are given accessible cybersecurity tips, things like AI safety, travel security, or digital privacy, they respond with a sense of cautious optimism. Viewers consistently appreciate actionable, practical defense measures that empower them, rather than information that just generates panic.
Section 5. Future Threats to Watch. The Horizon. Based on current intelligence estimates, here is your Horizon watch list. First, expect intelligence services to keep a close eye on the latent prepositioning of groups like Volt Typhoon inside civilian infrastructure. Second, we're likely going to see a measurable rise in AI-enhanced phishing attacks directly paired with data theft ransomware. Third, software supply chain risks targeting AI developers, like the recent compromise with Mistral AI, will probably expand. And finally, with geopolitical tensions remaining high, potential election interference and information warfare are going to remain a primary concern for democracies globally.
Which brings us to a critical question as we look ahead. As state actors increasingly target our critical infrastructure in these emerging AI ecosystems, how will international cyber defense frameworks successfully adapt to prevent catastrophic disruptions? It's a huge question, and the answer is going to shape the geopolitical future of the entire cyber domain.
That wraps up this morning's Explainer Briefing. We appreciate you tuning in to get the facts. For a deeper analysis of these events, we highly recommend listening to the full Stylo News Intel Update podcast on your favorite channel, or just by clicking the link in this post. Make sure to also subscribe to Stylo News to get AI-powered news on demand at stylonews.com. I'll leave you again with this to think about. As state actors continue to target critical infrastructure, how will our global defense frameworks adapt to prevent catastrophic disruptions? Thank you for your time this morning, stay informed, and have a great day.